being here 5 times over November.
The door opens. We don't either. Good morning, Judge Chicchelly. It's good to see you this morning. And when you're settled, you may begin with your opening statement.
All right, thank you so much. Madam Chair, Commissioners, again, good morning. And first, I want to thank all of you again for your continued service on this commission. Though the circumstances leading to this particular selection process were unquestionably tragic and abrupt, I am again incredibly grateful to all of you and am truly honored to be here again before you today. Today, I come before you in application for the Iowa Supreme Court, and by now, I'm pretty sure you all know me pretty well. With a new group, though, of outstanding candidates for an entirely different appellate position, today I do want to tell you why I believe that I am the best candidate for the position that you seek to fill on Iowa's Supreme Court. In support of my candidacy, I cite my district court judicial experience, my exceptionally low reversal rate, my judicial philosophy and temperament, and last, geographic and gender diversity. In contrast to Iowa's Court of Appeals, which generally reviews cases that are well-settled law, Iowa Supreme Court primarily reviews cases of first impression where there may be disagreement amongst the districts, cases involving areas of the law which are unclear or perhaps ambiguous, and as the court of highest review in our state, the importance of a correct, legally sound result is then even more pronounced. Moreover, the Supreme Court provides binding precedent upon our lower courts, so practicality of result is far more critical. In addition, our Supreme Court conducts important administrative duties within the branch, which the Court of Appeals does not. In short, when considering all of these duties of the Iowa Supreme Court, I submit that the ideal candidate is one that has broad judicial experience in handing down correct and practical rulings, who has a consensus builder, and also who can work well and effectively with the current members of the court, who has a strong knowledge of the administrative aspects of the branch, including case management, branch funding, and intersystem function. Which brings me to my first point. Taking all of the foregoing into account, I will assert that my lengthy experience as a district court judge, especially on a large and busy and hectic docket, well qualifies and prepares me for Iowa's Supreme Court. In part, this assertion is based on the breadth of my legal and judicial experience, but also this assertion is based on my track record for providing prompt, correct rulings with a solid practical understanding of how decisions are made and how the work gets done in Iowa's trial courts. I'll start with the breadth of my judicial experience. There's almost no area of the law that I have not at least touched on during my lengthy judicial career. I've handled complex, multi-million-dollar civil matters, medical malpractice cases, antitrust, insurance defense, criminal felony misdemeanors, family law, juvenile matters, probate, guardianships, conservatorships, trusts, contract disputes, real estate, tax assessment appeals, boundaries, easement disputes, nuisance disputes, property foreclosures, and so on. But beyond the mere depth of my substantive law experience, I have additionally accrued vast experience in the courtroom, and I think this is critical, presiding over hundreds of non-jury and jury trials in my 7 years on the bench. I've been in the position of deciding which law to instruct the jury on, whether to order a mistrial, whether to overrule objections or exclude certain evidence, whether to allow claims to even proceed to a jury, whether to sentence a defendant to a prison term or to probation, who to award children to in a custody dispute, whether to issue an arrest warrant, search warrant, a subpoena, whether to affirm or overturn a decision of a mental health, relative to a mental health committal, a magistrate, or agency decision. These are real-time decisions involving the exercise of judicial discretion. While practicing attorneys advocate and gain experience arguing, researching, and writing, actual experience in deciding cases and entering rulings, as well as exercising judicial discretion on matters of substantial breadth, is experience that only a district court judge can bring to this position. Therefore, I assert that a judge of the Iowa's District Court with the depth and breadth of legal knowledge is best equipped to review the decisions of other judges. Also, having spent thousands of hours in the courtroom, I have a keen sense for what goes on in the courtroom, far over and above what a mere transcript is able to convey. And I have developed the unique perspective of knowing how to craft a practical result which will be able to be understood and applied by the lower courts in their work. Moreover, as a judge, I point to my efficiency, my organization skills, my strong work ethic. The administrative and trial dockets of the 6th Judicial District are hectic and busy, with large and varied caseload. My demonstrated experience in managing and the administrative dockets, especially in Lynn and Johnson counties, have prepared me well for the administration functions of the highest court of Iowa. Additionally, I have never rendered a late decision, always completing my work in a timely manner and keenly focusing on the litigants at the center of every controversy. This leads me to my second point, my reversal rate. While my 95% judicial retention rate per the Iowa State Bar Association's judicial plebiscite is a subjective reflection on a scale of 1 to 100 of what lawyers think of my work, my skills, my demeanor, my knowledge of the law, I point to my low reversal rate as evidence of the solidity and correctness of my judicial decision making. In 7 years on the bench, I've entered roughly 8,000 dispositional orders and rulings as a district court judge, and only twice has a ruling of mine ever received any negative treatment at all by an appellate court. And I'll remind you that those were only partial reversals on actually kind of tangential issues to each of those cases. This results in a reversal rate, again, of about 2.5 in 10,000, and in fact, with no reversals to report since I last saw you, my reversal rate has continued to drop. Significantly, these numbers objectively demonstrate that my work has withstood the scrutiny of the appellate process. This is critical when considering the finality of decisions rendered by the Iowa Supreme Court. I'd also point toward my philosophy and temperament in support of my candidacy. Not only do I continuously strive for personal excellence, but I've also demonstrated a profound dedication to public service in my church, in my local Kiwanis group, and by taking on leadership roles within the branch as president of the Iowa Judges Association, legislative liaison, and as a judicial educator. I've served on numerous committees within the branch and have taken the opportunity to educate students and also new judges. Have also taken on the opportunity to educate other judges and to go throughout the state in educating the public. I do not shy away from opportunities to educate the public on critically important role of our branch within our government and enhance public understanding in the confidence that the judicial branch, the work that the judicial branch does. In terms of temperament, I treat people fairly and have a firm and humble comprehension that my power is bestowed upon me by our Constitution, and therefore should be responsibly and thoughtfully and conservatively exercised. Also, my early experience in the United States Marine Corps instilled within me a sense of service, of duty, and of teamwork. I work well with others and am a consensus builder. I can bring perspective to our Supreme Court in the form of many years of judicial experience. This brings me to my final point. Within the merit selection process, the Commission looks to who is the most qualified candidate for the appellate role that they're seeking to fill on the basis of merit. I submit that my credentials, my record, my demeanor, all have demonstrated that I have merit. However, I submit that once merit has been established, diversity should be considered, both in terms of geography and to a degree in terms of gender as well. As to geography, there is not one judge or justice on either of Iowa's appellate courts who is from the 6th Judicial District. Iowa's second most populous district with nearly 500,000 Iowans. Moreover, there is representation from every other district on either one or both of our appellate courts. I can't emphasize enough that the work of the judicial branch is not perfectly uniform from district to district in terms of the nature of dockets, staffing, local rules, procedures, and even sometimes results. I'm able to bring the unrepresented perspective of the 6th Judicial District to this court. As to gender, I continue to maintain that presuming merit has been established, the highest court of our state should reflect what our state looks like. More than half the people in our state are women. It was important for a woman to be appointed to this court last year, but I believe it continues to be important to strive towards a court that mirrors the makeup of our entire population. Because diversity enhances public confidence in our appellate courts, it's important to the citizens of every portion of our state to have representation at that level and to bolster their sense that justice is there in the work that is done. And I submit to the Commission that this is a gap on the Iowa Supreme Court that I can continue to be able to fill. In short, I believe that my past years of experience and service would serve the Supreme Court of Iowa well, and I would look forward to serving this state in that capacity if I were so honored to be appointed. Again, thank you for your time, and with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Hoyting.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
One of the most important things I think Supreme Court justice does is decide what cases to take. What would weigh in the analysis of what types of cases you think the Supreme Court should be deciding?
And I think when we're looking at cases that involve areas of ambiguity, if there's not any real clear path or clear law, if there is ambiguity, for instance, in a statute, if there has been disagreement amongst the districts. When I came across an ERISA issue recently in a case that I had, that the districts of our state, the decisions were all over the board with what to do with that. And I think when we see those kinds of situations come up, those are the kinds of cases that the Supreme Court is best suited to take.
Thank you.
Ms. Valentine.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
You're doing such a darn good job there. What do you say to people that say, you know, we don't want to lose Judge Chicchelly. We want to keep her here doing her great job in the 6th District. What would you bring to the court that would merit losing you to the 6th District? What would Iowans get on the Supreme Court from you?
So what Iowans would get from me on the Supreme Court would be a person who has the ability to connect with Iowans, to bring the ability to communicate with Iowans and to share and to try to drive and add to the public confidence in the court. But also, as I discussed, that added perspective from the 6th Judicial District. They lose me at the 6th Judicial District. However, the Supreme Court statewide gains the ability to have that perspective sitting at the table. And so I love what I do. I love being in the 6th Judicial District. The people that I work with and the people that come before me as litigants are wonderful. And I would miss that. But I think that I need to seek additional responsibility and to enhance the perspective that's at the table here in Des Moines.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Sukup.
Thank you. Judge, this morning we've sort of have had a number of quotes, and the one I jotted down for you is how when the gate doesn't swing your way. Like after the last applications to the court, how have you approached that?
So to take a page out of Justice Christensen's book, you know, I've been told no more than I've been told yes for any judicial position if you really think about it. And so should that stop a well-qualified candidate from moving forward and from presenting themselves as a viable option for something so important as this court? I think that if we were all to just stop in our tracks the first time that we were told no, that inspires no one, especially not your inner self. And so when the gate swings back, then I push the gate forward again and I move forward. And I think that's what we all need to be doing in our lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Brien.
Good morning, Judge. Do you have any thoughts about or any ideas about specific programs, changes in the administration of the court system that is also the responsibility of the Iowa Supreme Court?
But I think that at this point in time, we're doing some things really well. You know, we've started some initiatives, and we've got new law changes with regard to how we're dealing with guardianship and conservatorship cases, and getting those cases into the juvenile court, especially with regard to minors, obviously, so that they can be more, I think, more closely tracked. I think, though, with regard to the sense of you know, criminal sentencing, other options in terms of like jail diversion, the specialty courts, and really trying to emphasize those more in terms of what we can do with criminal offenders. I think those are some additional areas that we need to continue to pursue, press funding on, and try to use more of that, because our prison system is full and not necessarily the best avenue for rehabilitating people.
Thank you. Mr. Berger? No questions. Ms. Conover?
No questions.
Ms. Pearson?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson.
Mr. Gray?
I lack the creativity for coming up with any new questions this time, so thank you very much for coming.
Ms. Law?
No questions.
Mr. Bevel?
No questions.
Mrs. Sinclair.
No questions.
Oh, my goodness.
Mr. Goodman.
I wanted to say that too, but I don't think I am going to ask a question about your comments on geographic diversity, because I agree with you. I think it's a merit-based selection process, and then after that we look at other characteristics, whether it be geographic diversity or personal characteristic diversity, which I think is important. What I struggle with, and I'm not throwing this out to indicate how I'm going to vote on your application, but I want you to help us with that. We currently have 4 justices from Des Moines. Chief Justice Cady lived in Des Moines for quite a bit of his tenure, but had a place in Fort Dodge as well. Justice Waterman's from a town of 102,000. Cedar Rapids is 132,000. We have 1 justice that's from a town that's about 5,000. So if geographic diversity is important, is it the location in the state? Is it whether it's rural or urban? What are we to look at when we make a decision that's based upon geographic diversity? Help us with that.
Sure. I think it's some of all of that, really. I think it's important for that geographic diversity to embrace the differences in our districts judicially, because, as I said, this is not cookie cutter. In our state, we have a number of judicial districts doing things differently. We have different local rules. We have different customs. We have even just how someone coming in on a probable cause arrest, what that looks like in Cedar Rapids versus Des Moines is different. But here's something in addition to that, is there are differences between Cedar Rapids and Vinton, Iowa. There are differences between Vinton, Iowa and Marengo, Iowa and Anamosa, Iowa. And I have experience in all of those areas. I've presided on all of those dockets. And so to the extent that there might be differences between urban and rural and what the sense of justice looks like in those different situations, I have that diversity as well. But I think it's all important.
Thank you. Mr. Horbach.
No question.
Ms. Stanger.
Okay, I'm wrestling with 2 questions. That's I'll let you choose, right? Choose your own adventure. Why not? That's the millennial version of life right now. So I'm thinking about 2 kind of things. I'd like you to pick one. Concept for our Supreme Court is that beyond just rulings, beyond just opinions, they have a significant role in administration, and a significant role is leadership of our branch. I'd like you to think about or explain to the Commission your experience with servant leadership and what that might mean and what you might bring to the court. Or, alternatively, for those that say you don't, that appellate experience is really necessary for someone who sits on the court. Could you address as to whether you have what it takes in terms of appellate experience? Maybe you want to address both.
I can do both.
But that's what's on my mind.
I can do both.
I figured
especially
you could.
because 7 people didn't ask a question,
There you go.
so you'll get a bonus question.
That was John Gray's question.
I'll start really quickly with regard to the appellate experience. As a district court judge, we do have appellate experience because I preside in an appellate role over anything that the magistrates do. I also preside in an appellate role over some agency decisions and as well with regard to mental health committals. And so I do review the work of other decision makers. And so that aspect I already do as a district court judge. With regard to leadership, there has not been a group that I didn't. It just seems like it sort of comes to me. If I join the Marion Metro Kiwanis, and at some point I'm the president. I join the Cedar Rapids Literary Club, and at some point I'm the president. I join the Iowa Judges Association, and probably within a year, I was asked to be in the executive board, and was the president of the Iowa Judges Association within a couple of years of even becoming a judge. I think there's part of that is really that I just make myself available. I always seek more responsibility and look for ways that I can expand my knowledge and understanding, but also to serve in a better role and just do more. And so I think that I can bring that as well to the Iowa Supreme Court. I think that in an administrative role in the Iowa Supreme Court, it's necessary to have those leadership qualities. But I think even more importantly, again, with regard to our outreach to the public of this state, it's just critical to have people that are willing to have that interface with our public.
Thank you. Well, with those last two questions, we are out of time, but we certainly thank you for being here today, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.